Hey everyone, I'm Anne Marie Green in Florida. A state of emergency has been declared. The governor of Florida spoke a short time ago. Right now, though, the storm is turning over Puerto Rico. Erica made landfall there overnight, dousing parts of the island with heavy rains and winds. Well, a little bit further east, the storm killed at least 20 people. Erica pounded Dominica, unleashing severe floods and devastating landslides. Now, the storm could hit Florida as soon as Monday. Meteorologist Lizette Gonzalez from our Miami station WFOR has the latest forecast.
Although Tropical Storm Erica remains disorganized this morning, still posing a threat to Florida as we head into later this weekend and early next week. Right now, bringing plenty of rain to Puerto Rico, and the threat for flash floods and mudslides continues across the Caribbean. Now, big changes to the advisory this morning, moving to the west-northwest and headed towards Dominican Republic and Haiti. Will have to overcome disruptive wind shear, interacting with a mountainous terrain. There is a chance Erica may dissipate. However, if it survives, moving towards the Turks and Caicos Saturday morning, either the Bahamas or Cuba through the weekend. The track is shifted a bit to the south. There will be more favorable conditions for Erica to regain some strength. Lower wind shear, very warm waters over the Bahamas. And right now, Hurricane Center forecasting a possible tropical storm impacting the state of Florida as early as Monday 2 a.m. And then through early and middle of next week, Erica may be drifting to the north across the spine of the state. The cone widens up, indicating a lot of uncertainty as we head into the latter part of the weekend and early next week. But right now, at least for the next 24 hours, there's a lot of confidence Erica will move across Hispaniola, maybe Cuba. Some of the models keeping Erica along the coast of Florida, across the state. Now a few models moving Erica westward across Cuba and into the Gulf of Mexico because of the steering pattern, which could help Erica steer to the north, or we could see high pressure continue to steer Erica towards the west. In the meantime, along the southeast coast, we'll have to keep a close eye. Tropical storm warnings in place for Puerto Rico, Turks and Caicos, southeast Bahamas. Tropical storm watches in place for the northeast Bahamas, with all these changes to the track shifting to the west. And now some of the models indicating Erica may move into the Gulf of Mexico or Florida throughout the next few days. We will all have to closely monitor Tropical Storm Erica. Anne Marie?
All right, well, joining me now on the phone is retired Lieutenant General Russel Honore. There he is. Thank you for joining us. And if that name is familiar to you, you may remember him because he was a key player coordinating the relief effort after Hurricane Katrina hit the Gulf Coast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, good morning.
Good morning. I know you've been listening in to all the talk about Tropical Storm Erica, and it looks like it at least maybe veer a little westward. They're talking about a lot of rain. When you listen to this, though, what are your thoughts?
Well, number one, that people don't become complacent because it's not a Category 1, 2, or 3 hurricane. Remember, Hurricane Sandy was not a hurricane when it came ashore. It was a storm. Flooding is the biggest threat, as the governor just said, and people need to listen to the governor. If you're in a flood zone, you need to be prepared to evacuate. We lose more homes and we kill more people in flooding every year than any other event. This storm will pack a flooding threat to southern Florida and the coast, and people need to be prepared. How do you know if you're in a flood zone? If you can see water from your house, you're in a flood zone.
I wonder, you know, yesterday the president was talking in New Orleans, and he said a lot of what was applied to the relief effort after Hurricane Sandy was learned after Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. But I sense a little bit of frustration in your voice that even after witnessing what happened during Katrina, even after witnessing what happened after Sandy, people seem to not take these storms as seriously as you think they should.
We got a cultural issue in Florida. Florida, one of our most prominent and big states. There's an issue in Florida on evacuation where people think they will call the evacuation based on the category of the storm. That is a big mistake. People need to listen to the governor, and if you live in a low-lying area and your area is subject to surge of water flooding, you need to be prepared to evacuate. You need to prepare your home, prepare your neighbors, and be prepared for the lights to go out. So if you live along the coast and you're a low-lying area, The best suggestion is, particularly if you're elderly and have disabled relatives, you need to get them out as soon as the governor says evacuate the area.
Yeah, very good advice. Let's go back, though, 10 years when Hurricane Katrina hit the Gulf Coast. And New Orleans initially looked okay until the levees broke. And you were called in, and it was during that time you acquired a couple of nicknames, the Ragin' Cajun, the Category 5 General. Do you remember the first few moments when you really got a chance to survey what was going on in New Orleans and what you thought?
Yeah, it was that moment we flew into New Orleans on Wednesday morning at about 9:47 and flew over the city and see 80% of the city underwater. That was a game changer, and to see some 16,000 people standing around the Superdome as we landed there in the helicopter, that was a sight to behold, one of desperation, and we said to ourselves then, how we prevent this from happening again.
And was the mission clear once you sort of looked down from your helicopter?
Absolutely. The mission was clear. The mission of doing search and rescue, keeping people alive, conduct evacuation, provide food and water, until we could evacuate the city and get people out of the flood zone.
You know, you had, was it 20,000, a 20,000 strong task force?
It was larger than that. The combined task force of the State National Guard, which did an excellent job, National Guard coming from all over the United States, thousands of up to 30,000 at one time in between Mississippi and Louisiana. Wow. And we had 20,000 federal troops, 20 ships, and over 225 helicopters from the Department of Defense.
Wow. It was amazing the work that was done. But I wonder, while you were working through it, did you think, you know, there are some things that I can do and some things that I just cannot do that others need to do? How frustrating it was at that time where were there other people that you wanted to sort of step up to the plate?
Well, I think the lesson is listen to what the governor is saying down in Florida now, that lesson. You know, there was a lot of work being done by the mayor of New Orleans and the governor trying to encourage people to evacuate. And in many cases, people said, well, if the Saints are going to play football tonight, maybe we don't have to evacuate. And they need to look at that down in Florida. There's a lot of football going to start this weekend and school programs. People need to listen to their government and evacuate. The other thing we've learned is that the federal government leaned forward now, have equipped our states with satellite phones and capacity so they can talk, but it's still going to be up to the citizens to listen and evacuate when the government advises that they evacuate, and then to be able to check on their neighbors, leave no neighbor in their house, take them with you.
Right, right. How did Hurricane Katrina impact you? It must have changed you as a person. I mean, an experience like that never leaves you.
Right, it made me, after I left the Army in 2008, to commit the rest of my life to, that is creating a culture of preparedness in America, because we must have an understanding that the best thing we can do in America is create a situation where Americans understand they have to be prepared to be their own first responder. And that's what the governor of Florida is telling people. Have your 3 to 5 day supply of food and water. Look out for your neighbors, make sure you got your medication, and be prepared to evacuate if he tells you to evacuate.
Lieutenant General, it's been 10 years now, and there's been a lot of talk about how the city has evolved and what has worked and what has not worked. What do you see that you like about the new New Orleans, and what do you see that still needs some work?
Well, I'll tell you what, that part of the city that has come back, this is Destination City. It's ready. It's open for business. You got more hotels and more restaurants than had before Katrina. The schools are being reworked. Still got some work to do on schools. But the recovery has not been equitable, as the president said yesterday in his speech, and the mayor now is repetitively saying, we've got a part of the city that did not recover the way it should have recovered. And that is a place where 55% of the young men are unemployed and undereducated. We've got to fix that. And we've got to fix the remainder of the recovery, which is those areas that were not covered, where a large population of poor people live. The recovery went like this. If you had a job and you were doing well before the storm, you did better. If you were working poor, which is the case in New Orleans, people with 2 jobs and still working, living in poverty, you did worse after the storm than you were doing before the storm. We've got to get them back into the city. We've got to get more affordable housing, and we've got to fix the education system to address the issue of some 20,000 young men and women between the age of 16 and 20 that are not in school and not working.
All right, Lieutenant General Russel Honore, thank you so much for joining us.
Have a good day.